Hello and welcome back to Morbidly Bewitched. In the last video, I discussed an unusual chemical reaction that can occur called Adipocere. And in this episode, I'm going to be explaining a curious case of Adipocere. So stay tuned. Yes, grab your cup of tea and join me as I take you down this little unusual route. This is more a case of deceit again by the doctors, and all begins at the famous Mutter Museum in Philadelphia. The Mutter Museum was founded by Thomas Dent Mutter in 1858. But housed at a location in 1863. The Mutter Museum is the college for physicians in Philadelphia, but it is also one of the most renowned museums for its sheer collection of specimens in pathology and anatomy and antique medical equipment, and also is the museum that houses Albert Einstein's brain. But one of its main attractions is the soap lady. Yes, the soap lady attracts visitors from all around the world just to see her delightful face. And she is still a curiosity to this day. She's one of the best examples of Adipocere, and this all begins with the exhumation of a graveyard in Philadelphia. In 1874, a Dr. Leidy, a 19th century paleontologist that worked in the Mutter Museum, heard of the exhumation of this cemetery and was also told that there was 2 cases of Adipocere had been unearthed during the excavation. Dr. Leidy was so excited at the thought of these grisly specimens that he went to the then curator of the museum, William Hunt, very excited, wanting to procure these 2 deceased. And William Hunt says, no problem, go and get them. This is when Dr. Leidy fell into a couple of problems. He spoke to the sexton and the caretaker of the cemetery and was told, no, you cannot take these bodies because you are not a relative. You can't just take them to be specimens. No, no, and no. He very quickly devised a plan. He falsifies documents to say that these 2 individuals, who were male and female, were actually his grandparents, and never seeing the caretaker or the sexton again, very sneakily sent a furniture removal horse and cart to the graveyard to pick up the 2 deceased with this letter signed by the so-called grandson. The caretaker and sexton were paid handsomely for the retrieval of these 2 deceased, $15. And there's receipts to show that Leidy was reimbursed by the Mutter Museum for obtaining these 2 new specimens. Upon arrival at the Mutter Museum that foggy, It was a foggy night upon the arrival at the Mutter Museum when the 2 specimens arrived by horse and cart. That worked out quite well. Dr. Leidy had told the museum that these 2 deceased were both under the surname Ellenbogen or Ellenbogen. I'm not really too sure how you pronounce that surname, but he told them that they died of yellow fever in 1792. This story was believed by all who worked at the museum for a further 65 years, until a new curator, Joseph McFarland, became the curator for the museum. And he thought, I'm going to find out a little bit more about her rather than just that she died in 1792 of yellow fever, and her surname was Ellenbogen. McFarland described, and an awful lot of the other workers in the museum described, the soap lady as a revolting sight with a nutcracker-like gaping facial appearance, a toothless gasp, shriveled eyes, and wisps of hair still clumped to her head. But what concerned McFarland more was, no matter how much research this man did, he could not find any records pertaining to Ellenbogen as a surname for anyone in that year that lady said this person had died, for that cemetery. He even went into the records for yellow fever, and nobody under the name of Ellenbogen was recorded as having passed away from the disease. And this left a huge question mark over Dr. Leidy's entire story and who this woman actually was. When they looked deeper into the files, they realised what Dr. Leidy had done. That led in 1987 a team headed by Gerald Conlug from Thomas Jefferson University to study her further. For some reason, the other creator doesn't really get a mention. The soap lady kind of stole the show, but the other man, I think they called him William, just didn't get the same press. Yeah, God love him. Well, anyway. So in 1987, further studies were carried out by Conlug's team, and they decided to x-ray her to try and find out further information. So they realised that she would have been approximately 40 years of age. She did not die of yellow fever, and she had an extremely robust skeleton. So she was quite a sturdy, well put together woman with no teeth, but her teeth hadn't fell out post-mortem. She had lost her teeth probably in her teens, which for the era was commonplace, but usually through some kind of pathological reason. They also ascertained that she did not die in 1792, that Dr. Leidy suggested, because upon x-raying her, they came across these pins, and these pins would have suggested that a shroud was placed. So they did further inspection on the pins themselves, and the particular pin that was used was only manufactured and patented in 1824. So that blew the year of death out of the question. Conlug's team, and I mean his exact team, rebanded in 2007 with advanced equipment to look further into the soap lady. But unfortunately, the only thing that they could really ascertain through these tests was that she was more than likely in her 30s when she died, not her 40s. Unfortunately though, Adipocere, when it has collected and formed around the body, starts off as a very hard wax, but over time will harden and become brittle. And they believed that further tests would damage her and probably be risky to carry out because she's so fragile. She's in such a fragile condition now. I mean, this woman's been on display for over 140 years, but they have decided to let her rest in peace as a well-loved specimen of the museum. However, they do not know who she is, and the Mutter Museum is essentially left with an illegally obtained, unidentified woman. So there you go, the curious case of Ellenbogen and her not really noticed male counterpart. Join me in my next video. In my videos from here on in, I'm going to bring you curious cases of death, but in my next video, I'm going to be talking about mausoleums, because that is another committal, a form of committal that I haven't discussed because I am from Northern Ireland and mausoleums isn't something that we do. And from then on in, more forms of unusual committals, unusual deaths and strange circumstances. So please subscribe and stay tuned.